Roberto De Zerbi, the man in charge now, Danny, reportedly in discussions, although we better check this with Brighton, reportedly in discussion over extending his contract with the football club. You know, when you look at it, Danny, few thought that Graham Potter was a fit for an elite job, but he got one at Chelsea. Didn't last. But why do they think De Zerbi is a fit for an elite position? Because as Souness said not that long ago, what do we know about this fella?
Well, I think different people will have different opinions. I don't think everyone's got the same. Some would say he's destined for greater things, and some.
Well, you were one of those. You said he could be Liverpool.
That was insightful.
No, what?
Well, you said.
You
said
mean
on this
if
that
club...
he could once.
Oh
Klopp
yeah.
decides to,
Sorry, yeah.
To hang up his.
I think he's.
hat.
Did he say it or did he write it in a column? Because if he wrote it in a column, he probably didn't know what was in it.
That's true. Okay.
Where we at?
All right. Have a sandwich.
Having met him,
sandwiches.
Not just watched the team. Having met him a couple of times and watched him train, that took me to a new level of respect for what he was doing. And then seeing the team, they've got such an identity and a way of playing. You know, really well coached, play with really good intensity. I think he's taken Brighton on a level, and I think he's got. Simon and I were just talking off air. I think he's got ego, you know, in a good way. I think he's got a bit about him. I think he's strong. I don't think he takes any, you know what. No. I think he could handle big players. Now, you never know till you're in it. It's like playing at the top level. You never know till you're there. But if you can judge, well, you never know for sure, but if you can judge somebody on the way they conduct themselves, the way they interview, the way they come across, I would say he's
destined. Talk about referees.
Well, yeah, that's definitely top form material then, isn't it? I think petulance and ill discipline. God, yeah, well, that's a prerequisite.
Well, I mean, for his part, Danny, he's saying, yeah, we're speaking about the new contract, but at the moment, we're only speaking, it's not done yet.
I think it'd be great for him to stay a bit longer at Brighton, and great for them, and also we'd see a bigger body of work to judge him on.
Do you know what I thought when I heard it? I felt this has a whiff of Brighton locking down and protecting their position, knowing that there's going to be a challenge coming imminently, like they did with McAllister. Yeah. Player and manager different, I get you, but they insulated Potter. Chelsea got their pants pulled royally down on the cost implications of getting Potter out, and this feels a little bit like that. And it feels to me like that Brighton are preparing for life without preparing for life without him. I don't know whether he steps up. It's one thing coming from Shakhtar Donetsk and coming into a very decently built platform that he was able to bounce off. And he was strong. Trossard wasn't what he wanted, so out the door he went. The recruitment that he's got, he has a brilliant recruitment backdrop that he's inherited that's producing players that he can work with because he's been given the raw materials to turn him into better. The culture of the team was already there. He's enhanced it. Whether he can step up into a different environment where the expectation levels are different, the size and scale and feel and heritage and legacy all weigh heavily in bigger football clubs than they do at Brighton or Crystal Palace or any club that are in the middle tier of the Premier League. In this instance, Brighton are doing better than that.
Yes.
And that's not suggesting that Brighton are not worthy of having his services and are not a good football club, because we wax lyrical. It made me feel ill yesterday for the 20 minutes we talked about Brighton. But I question whether De Zerbi will be able to translate into a bigger football club, because it's yet to be proven. But the job he's done at Brighton, there's something about him that I don't warm to, and that might just because he's the Brighton manager. That might be my preordained bias.
That's called success.
Well, he ain't got any.
He's done
success.
He's done well.
It's all relative, isn't it?
He's the sort of manager that would talk back to you if you were the owner, and that's what you don't like.
Well, no, he's the sort of manager
he stands his ground.
He's the sort of manager that wouldn't need to talk back to me because he'd be left to his own devices because he's doing his job.
But if you were Tony Bloom at the moment, though, presumably you'd be saying the same thing.
Absolutely.
But he's got a 4-year contract, isn't he, already?
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
So he's already in a 4-year contract, so he's got 3 years to go. So I don't think I'd be burning my, burning the horses to get to that point.
I mean, Danny, they're in the knockout stages of the Europa League in their first year in Europe.
The only thing I'd say regarding his credentials, and he's got many qualities I like. The only thing I've seen at Brighton, which I've seen a lot, is the constant rotation of players. Which I know they're playing a lot of games, I get it, but he does it all the time. And I think when you're at a big club, you need a core group who they won't be rotated. The big boys. If you manage top players, you're not going in and out every week. You're playing every week. The best players play every week,
even in Europe.
Well, lesser games in Europe.
It's a tough old
But what I'm saying is,
card.
if you look at City, when you could name 6 who play all the time. 7.
True.
Liverpool, you can name their best 7, maybe 8.
Yeah, I mean, last week against AEK, he had Jack Hinchelwood in there, Igor Julio.
No, he does it all the time. Even when they weren't in Europe last year, he was swapping it all the time.
Yeah.
He swaps it all the time. And I think at a big club, you'd have to deal with a different type of ego there. And you'd have to, and maybe it's easier to keep a more consistent team when you've got super experienced international players, so you wouldn't have that problem. But I think that's the only question mark I see, is that obviously when you haven't dealt with players like that, bigger players, then how do you... We've seen it with Ten Hag now, aren't we? You know, he's learning on the job. He's never had to deal with these problems before.
Do you see someone like... Could you see this fella, Danny, in your mind's eye? Say, for example, the perceived inevitability that you and I forecast, which is the demise of Ten Hag. Do you see someone like him? Because United have been very poor in their recruitment. There's been no ambition or thought process. They've gone for what they think is established managers. No ambition, no outside the box. When Klopp came to Liverpool, he was 47 years of age and had done well at Dortmund, but there was ambition, forward thinking about it. There's nothing forward thinking about United's appointments. You look at Louis van Gaal, older statesman of football, got an established track record. You go to Jose Mourinho, same perspective, complete departure of logic with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and to Erik Ten Hag. Can you see someone like De Zerbi being a departure in the thinking from United, and can you see him sat at Old Trafford?
I can, yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, I really can.
Okay.
I think he's got...
Did you check with United? You could talk like this.
It's not an allegation, it's an observation.
Okay.
Well, it was a question.
A question,
All right.
not a statement.
Actually, it's a test for them tonight, Simon. Brighton at home to Brentford. Who wins it?
I would expect Brighton to come through that game. I mean, Brentford are very decent.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Thomas Franks. But I think Brighton at home should beat Brentford.
This stage of the season, Jim, you've got that many games coming up and that many players.
Fast.
But, you know, the form goes out the window a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're playing 3 days later and you've got 4 of your main players missing and you're not quite at the races, in the Prem you get done.
Sure.
Can't carry people.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.